The Epstein files, anything you can request through your committee process?
Obviously, we're all curious about it. So, I think there's a lot of discussion taking place as to what can be done, and hopefully something will be decided very soon. I've had a lot of discussions with members of my committee. The majority of the members of my committee have a lot of questions. There are a lot of discussions being taken place as to what legal options there are.
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has now issued a slew of subpoenas related to the Jeffrey Epstein case, potentially setting up a showdown with the Trump administration, which has been pretty desperate to keep information pertaining to Epstein in the dark, despite all the promises of releasing the Epstein files, of course. Now, Democrats on the committee successfully forced a vote to issue a subpoena to the Department of Justice right before the House went on recess. And now, Chairman Comer is demanding that the Department of Justice release the full unredacted Epstein files to members of the committee. That subpoena directs DOJ to turn over the full, complete, unredacted Epstein files to the committee on or before August 19th, 2025. Now, he wrote in the subpoena letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, while the department undertakes efforts to uncover and publicly disclose additional information related to Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell's cases, it is imperative that Congress conduct oversight of the federal government's enforcement of sex trafficking laws generally and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell. Now, in addition to demanding the Epstein files, the Republican-led panel issued subpoenas for 10 former government officials, including a former president, for closed-door depositions. And that includes former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland, former FBI Director James Comey, Trump's former AG William Barr, which I think is very relevant when it comes to this deposition. I'll explain why in a minute. Other previous attorneys, General Alberto Gonzales, Jeff Sessions, Loretta Lynch, and Eric Holder, and FBI Director Robert Mueller. Now, these officials' tenures working in government coincided with the investigations into Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. That's why these are the individuals who were chosen to be subpoenaed for closed-door depositions. Now, funny story about William Barr. Now, Bill Barr's father, who was actually working for the OSS, that was the government agency that led to the CIA, or the CIA at the time, think of it that way. He was the guy who hired Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein dropped out of college, okay? Bill Barr's father hired him to be a mathematics teacher at the prestigious Dalton School, which doesn't hire college dropouts typically, okay? William Barr, Bill Barr, was the one overseeing Jeffrey Epstein's imprisonment and suicide when he was in prison.
But don't worry, he said there was nothing to see there.
Nothing to see.
Okay,
yeah.
So there's one part of this that I agree with, but first let me tell you the depressing news. This is all theater, guys.
It probably is,
because you know why? Because the subpoena gets challenged in court by the executive branch. The Republicans know this. This has happened many, many times before, and the courts literally take years to resolve it. And I guarantee you, let's say that it lasted 2.5 years, but you know, there's 6 months left in the Trump administration or whatever, and the courts say, yes, you can subpoena the files and get them, right? I guarantee you, whoever's in charge, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans in Congress, will go, hey, you know what, we changed our mind, we don't want it. I guarantee it. There's no way they're gonna. In fact, even if they were gonna do it, they'd get called into the White House and they'd come back and they'd tell you, we've talked to the president, and because of national security interests, we've decided we're not going to release him. The reason why they haven't used national security as an excuse yet is because it would make people go, wait, what do you mean national security? I thought he was a lone perv by himself and had nothing to do with the government, right? Mm-hmm. But the minute they need it, they'll say national security, okay? So second thing is, this is a political hatchet job. So why? You're gonna call in the Clintons? Well, Bill Clinton makes sense. You know, he went to the island and whatever, right? Or hung out with Epstein a lot. But you're gonna invite Bill Clinton, but not Donald Trump. We all know Donald Trump's all over the Epstein files. Doesn't mean he did it, but I mean, Donald Trump was much better friends with Epstein than Bill Clinton was. So this is partisan.
I know. Well, okay, so I thought about that, and the real question is Congress, or is this committee in particular, able to subpoena a sitting president?
They could at least try.
Right, okay, good point, yeah.
Yeah, and look, other than the attorney generals, there's no potential clients who are Republicans who are invited. There's plenty of donors who are, et cetera, that we know of that at least had contact with Epstein. Okay, but the part that I like is I want all those attorney generals testifying.
Yeah.
And I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, whatever. Because remember, as much as we're all right to rag on Trump to the nth degree, he was great friends with Epstein. He made a giant deal about releasing the Epstein files, and all of his allies did. And now he's not really a giant hypocrite, et cetera. All correct. At the same time, why didn't any Democratic president ever release the files? Why didn't they ever release the tapes? And much more importantly, why didn't they ever prosecute any of the clients? So I would like to have Eric Holder answer that. I would like to see Merrick Garland answer that. Merrick Garland, you were just Attorney General. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you prosecute anyone? Why didn't you even try? And of course, also Bill Barr, Jeff Sessions, and all the rest of them.
So the cover letter Comer sent to Clinton calls for him to sit for a deposition on October 14th, which is right around the corner when you think about it, in order to answer questions about his relationship with Epstein. Comer also wrote, by your own admission, you flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane 4 separate times in 2002 and 2003. You were also allegedly close to Miss Ghislaine Maxwell, an Epstein co-conspirator, and attended an intimate dinner with her in 2014, 3 years after public reports about her involvement in Mr. Epstein's abuse of minors. By the way, like, what about Dershowitz, right? Dershowitz wrote a birthday letter to Epstein in 2016 for his 63rd birthday. Like, I think Dershowitz might have some interesting things to say in a sworn deposition under oath. But anyway, so that's what we have for now. We'll see what happens. I think Cenk is largely right. I think this is political theater, and I think the executive branch is going to do what it has been doing, which is essentially serving as an obstacle to the release of the Epstein files, despite what, all the Trump orbiters who are now in his administration were saying in the lead up to the 2024 election.
Last couple points here. So he's like, oh, well, Clinton, you were at an intimate dinner with Ghislaine Maxwell. There's like dozens of pictures of Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein together. Donald Trump wished Ghislaine Maxwell well 2 different times after she was arrested as one of the biggest child rapists in the country's history, right? And now moved her to a minimum security prison for apparently no reason, as a giant favor to Ghislaine Maxwell. So if you're gonna call in Clinton, call in Trump, but you won't because you're partisans. And finally, look, people make a big deal about the getting on the Lolita Express, that's the plane. But rich people allow each other to use their planes from time to time. But the people who went to the island, there's no reason to go to that island other than everybody knew that's where you partied, right? So at a bare minimum, they knew they were going to have sex with prostitutes. At a bare minimum, everyone who went to the island. Did they all know that they were underage? I don't know, but everyone who went on the island should be testifying. Don't tell me you were innocent and had nothing to do with it, and that you're not, and we're not allowed to ask you questions about it. That's insane. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.